Everyone has a story.
What's yours?
Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Amy.
And this is Monumental, a small show about the big things God does in the lives of ordinary people.
Once a month, we'll be sitting down with a different woman each episode to talk about a turning point in their lives.
A place where God did something big, something they'll want to tell their kids and their grandkids.
Something, well, monumental.
This month, we're talking to Jenna.
Jenna is the wife of one of our pastors, Jody Killingsworth, who is the leader of the band My Soul Among Lions.
And she's the mother of 6 children.
But before all that, Jenna was a dancer.
And today, she's going to share how in her dancing days, she turned to food instead of God for comfort.
But we'll let her explain.
I grew up first as a competitive swimmer, and so from the time I was 7 or 8, we were, my sister and I, we were swimming for like an hour and a half every day, all year round. It's a year-round sport. And when I was in 6th grade, oh goodness, I can't remember. I was 14, whatever grade that is. I took a dance class at school, at my public school, and really enjoyed it. And so I had some friends who encouraged me to come take like a ballet class at a real studio. And so that was my first introduction, which is super late for anybody to be starting dance. I just liked it so much that I completely quit swimming and jumped into this, dancing 3 or 4 nights a week. Just dove right in. So
dance studios. I have a friend that's a dancer and a teacher, but it's not you just take one ballet class and whatever. It's like if you're real committed, you take intense. All the classes.
Yeah, not if you're serious. If you're serious, you just take everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not just ballet. They want you to take everything else so you can.
So when I started, it was ballet, it was lyrical, it was jazz, it was modern, it was stretching classes, and then we came on almost every evening and on Saturday mornings too. So
wow, so it wasn't just ballet; it was getting a whole mix of different kinds of dancing,
education.
And dance. My parents were supportive. You know, they thought it was great that I was interested and involved in something and not getting into trouble.
Was in part the eating a lot, like you were working really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that you were burning a ton of calories and building up a really big appetite from all the, work.
Yeah, for sure. That was it. Yeah. I was just hungry, and, my mom would pack me sometimes 2 lunches, like 2 bags. She packed my lunch all through high school, which
shows you what kind of
she was just a really sweet mom. She would put treats in there on holidays, and so I never packed my own lunch. But she just wanted to see me eating. I'm sure she was concerned too with knowing how dancers typically think of themselves, that maybe I wouldn't eat.
Yeah,
but that was never
the opposite.
Yeah, that was never my issue. And so
did you guys ever talk about that?
No.
Did they realize that this was, an unhealthy thing, that you were eating more than?
Well, I don't think it was really unhealthy in high school.
Okay.
And so I think they just, she gave me lots of food, and they encouraged me to eat as much as I wanted because I was dancing all the time. Yeah. And so,
she's eating a lot. She must need it, and she's not gaining a lot of weight, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't, super thin, like super skinny, so that they would have been concerned that I wasn't eating enough. So I think I was just pretty average, like eating what I needed to eat at that point, but it was a lot. And I think the point that I would make is that I never had to exercise self-control because I was exercising so much that I could eat a lot. I could eat lots of desserts. I could eat lots of carbs, whatever, not really watch what I ate. And so that's kind of what set me up for failure in college. Mm-hmm.
But when you think of dancers, you think of super disciplined people.
Yeah, true. It's definitely true of me that I was willing to be disciplined in dance, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed working hard. I enjoyed sacrificing comfort, going through the bleeding feet, the, sore muscles, the exhaustion. But there was a certain pleasure in that, because I was gaining something and I could see the fruit of that.
Right. Yeah.
By getting better at it. And then, so I could be really disciplined in that, but there would be, other areas where, you feel you feel like, well, I have to let go somewhere.
Right.
It's an end up, if you're strict here, you're going to let go over here.
Right.
And
kind of like you've earned the opportunity to let down.
I can let myself have some extra ice cream. I had a really close friend that's told me, Amy, submission's not submission to your husband if you want to do it too. Like if you agree with it, then that's not really like exercising submission. And it sounds like in this case, it's not really discipline if you just...
Yeah, well, I think it's like submission is submission, but it doesn't take faith until you disagree with your husband. Right. Discipline is discipline. It doesn't take faith until it's something you have to do, but you don't want to do. Right. And then you have to exercise faith and do it anyway. Yeah. And that is...
Your bleeding feet would say it was discipline.
Yeah, lots of blisters, lots of...
Broken toes. Did you break toes?
I didn't have broken toes, but I had injured, tendons, and I had broken shins, stress fractures in my shins in college. And that was a point when I was not eating enough and taking point class for a couple hours. And the stress on my bones just caused them to get stress fractures. Correct. And that was kind of a breaking point. Yeah, literally, in my dancing trajectory, I went from studying ballet to studying modern at that point because ballet was too, it just seemed like I couldn't sustain that. My body couldn't do that, anymore. So, but it was partly because I wasn't taking care of myself.
So you said it was because you weren't eating enough. Mm-hmm. Was it because you didn't have your mom packing you 2 lunches every day? And you were trying to take care of yourself, and
that's good. No, I was.
At this point, are you in college?
This point, I'm in college. I lived on campus all 4 years. So I went to a really small liberal arts Christian school that was wonderful. I loved it. It was Belhaven College. Has a really strong dance program. They had, at that time, I don't think they still do, but at that time they had basically an all-you-can-eat cafeteria. Nice. For people who lived on campus. So you could literally walk in, you just had to show your ID and eat as much as you wanted. So like,
that doesn't help.
Absolutely no limit on anything.
Wow.
And that's really unusual. Yeah, so normally you can get like a tray of food, if you like check off your card, your meal plan or whatever. So this was really unhelpful to me.
They expected people to get full and stop.
Expected people to be normal. So I wish they had like you can get a tray of food and that's it. But I could go in and I did. So they had like an ice cream section, and they had ice cream bowls that were small. They were really small. So we would go, my friends and I, we would go get the cereal bowls, which were really big, the biggest bowls they had there. And we would go fill them with ice cream. And so there were times I can remember, going back 3 or 4 times for a cereal bowl full of ice cream after I'd had dinner. And it was like, I just couldn't stop. And even with my friends around me, even with people, you would think at some point,
I was
shame.
Gonna ask, did they notice? Like, were your girlfriends mad at you? Like, how can you eat that much?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like this. I had friends who would do something similar. Like we would sort of like let each other off. Because we had similar struggles. We had dancers typically have food struggles, and so if it was, it wouldn't be like if we were about to go to class. It would be at the end of the day when we danced all day and we didn't have to put a leotard on anymore. Or on Friday night when we had the whole weekend off of classes and we didn't have to look in the mirror until Monday, that we would, kind of binge. Well, not kind of, but really actually make ourselves sick. I would make myself sick eating too much food. So there were people in my life that I disapproved, like roommates or suite mates, friends that I had. But I think, it's like when you have a friend that has an issue like that is, you can see it's there, but it's just so hard to say something, I think, and so I don't remember more than just a couple times somebody saying something to me like, I think you shouldn't have any more of that, and at that point that was really helpful, and I could be like, you're right. Yeah. And now that you're saying something, I'm embarrassed and I'll stop. So I did appreciate that, but it's pretty rare. So our dance classes would be about an hour and a half typically, and we would have maybe like an hour and a half class. And then our days were pretty full. Like I had 8 a.m. classes every day or every year for my whole college experience. So we would start at 8 and we would go till 3 or 4 typically, have a little break for dinner, and then we had rehearsals from 6 to 8.
Wow.
And so there were like some academic classes interspersed. We had to do, your typical
general ed
classes. Yeah. And, but a lot of them were, actual dance classes. And so if I had like an hour break or a 30-minute break, I would often like go for a jog. What? So
oh, wow.
And so it was just, it was like that was my purge would be to over exercise, and then I could justify eating more. But then I felt guilty, so I would be like, well, I have to go jogging again tomorrow, and
that's the cycle.
Yeah.
So this cycle, this was all college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really started freshman year. I had been dancing a lot in high school, and then when you get to college, you're not the best. So actually, my freshman year, I danced way less than I had been in high school. So I had my normal, my ballet class, my modern class, but I wasn't being picked to be in all the rehearsals.
Right.
And I wasn't taking all of the classes yet. You're just kind of getting your feet wet, as a freshman. And so that was kind of what started me on this, I gained some weight, which to the average person would have, not looked like anything. But to me, it was really devastating. And just to be in a bigger environment. I had been at this little dance studio in high school, and so now I was really concerned with looking good, making my teachers, think that I was serious, working hard, wanting to be chosen for the roles in the dances, and wanting to be moved. So each semester you had the potential of being moved up to the next level of ballet or modern or point or whatever class it was. And so if you did well enough, then you could advance.
Move on. Yeah.
And so all of that just brought the pressure to look good, to perform well, to this whole new level, even though it was a Christian environment. And they were not pushing body image at all. They were really careful. The teachers were very, positive, and, they would tell you what you need to work on, but it wasn't like lose weight. It was like technique and so.
But that's college. Like, that's what you're there for.
Exactly.
It's also a heightened pressure of okay, this is my job.
Yeah. So it was intense, and I was spiritually and emotionally unprepared, and thought that I was proud and didn't want to be embarrassed and didn't want people to know that I struggled. So I didn't talk to anyone about it.
Nobody said anything to you.
Nobody said anything to me. So it's just sort of this, monkey see, no, hear no.
You had mentioned that a time or two someone would say, maybe you shouldn't eat that. And that would make you feel embarrassed or something. Is that what sort of started the hiding it? You said you got pretty skilled at hiding.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely, if I was going to overeat, and I knew that it would look really bad, I would do it alone. So, I would...
would you stash boxes from the cafeteria and take it back to your room?
Yes, I would. Or I would go... I didn't have a car my first 2 years, so I would have someone, take me on a grocery run, and I would get things to just kind of stash in my room. And when my roommate wasn't there, that's when I would, really indulge. But there were other people that I ate with too, that I did have a roommate that we would go sometimes out for an ice cream run and, eat like a pint of ice cream. And
you felt comfortable with.
And it was sort of like this.
Almost sounds like drinking buddies. When it's
ice cream buddies.
Ice cream buddies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. In this case,
it's the same. It's the same kind of thing. It was like, eating to escape, eating to let go, to try and shake off, the stress of the week, trying to relax.
So for you, it's food. If you narrowed down in on food is my addiction,
my comfort,
my
besetting sin, my savior.
For other people, exercises.
Yeah, I would say I would. I was kind of both. Like food was probably my comfort, and exercise maybe was my savior. You know, food got me into trouble and exercise got me out of it.
Was it something you started fighting in college or just becoming aware of the struggle?
Yeah. Well, all through college, I would say I was fighting. I was trying to fight it. I knew that it was sinful to respond to life by eating, to take things that were hard or, you know, whatever, and to go to food as like my comfort, my source of joy, my, you know, source of...
It was your go-to for fulfillment.
Right, my fulfillment, exactly. It was the thing that I looked forward to the most was eating. Yeah. And, you know, I would even sometimes set a timer, like I'm not going to eat for 3 hours. And then all I could think about was when that time would be up and I could eat again. And so it was like, even though I would say, you know, when I was in college, I would get up at 6 a.m. every morning. I had 8 o'clock classes every day. I would get up at 6 and I would read my Bible for at least an hour. And I would write. I was a journaler. I would write, you know, and I was in the charismatic church at that point and really believed in dreams and prophecies and God speaking to me through those things. And I was in prayer a lot as well, you know, on those mornings. And so I was a very spiritual person. I was very restrictive in my life. Like I didn't go out drinking. I didn't even hang out with guys, you know? I mean, I didn't have time. I was too busy dancing, but I didn't date anyone at all in college. And so I really was striving for holiness in every area of my life, but I had this one place where I was out of control. Yeah. And I did try and hide it, you know, because I was on the outside, I was very Christian, very charismatic, very outspoken about my relationship with the Lord, my love for the Lord, my love for his word. And I knew his word because I was reading it every morning, you know, and really studying the scriptures. But I was not, I went to church very faithfully. I went to the same church, but did not become a member. I was not accountable really to any particular church body or any particular person.
Mm-hmm. So there also weren't really people looking out for you spiritually either.
Right. And because I didn't want them to, because I had this one thing that I didn't want people to know about me. And I did want to project and let people know that I was serious about my faith. But there was not a place where I really submitted to anyone. And that's just because I didn't want an authority getting that close to me, because I didn't want them to see, that I really had some struggles with sin. And it wasn't, you know, it's funny. It's like, it's not one of those really awful things that, you know, most people would think of as like this horrible sin. But to me, I knew I was in bondage and could not and didn't want to be set free. I did want to be set free, but I wasn't willing to be humbled and broken. I was willing to be broken before the Lord, but I was not willing to be broken before any other person and confess in that way.
Yeah, because as a believer, you know God already knows. So in some ways, it's easy to be broken before the Lord because it's like, well, he does know about it, so we can talk to God about it. But we know we're truly broken when we're actually willing to confess it to someone else, probably, because then it's out there and somebody else has to deal with us on it. And that's really humbling.
Yeah, and that I was willing for the Lord to speak to me, to, you know, himself, to speak to me through dreams, to speak to me, you know.
But not through.
I didn't want to hear it through another person. And that was, you know, total pride and arrogance.
On my terms.
Exactly. And as if, you know, I was special enough to hear it straight from the Lord and didn't need to be spoken to by men or women.
Something as ordinary as that.
Right.
Well, and I guess part of the lie of our sin and wanting to keep living in our sin is that, or the deceitfulness of it, I guess, is that we think before God, we can just deal with it before God. And so, I mean, I know I've certainly had sins in my life where I've spent long periods of time just praying, Lord, just take this sin away, help me not to, but not confessing it with anyone because I just thought.
Or even wanting to deal with it. Lord, help me deal with this, help me overcome this, help me, you know, but still putting it on, you know, on my terms, on what I want, how I want to deal with it and how.
Yeah.
You know, I thought if I just confess my sin to anyone, even if I just talk about it with a friend, you know, then surely that's enough, you know, but it wasn't. I can look back now that I am and see that what was missing in my life was submission to a church, to real authority that came from the Lord.
When did you make that connection?
I don't think I made that connection until years after I had been married. It hadn't really occurred to me. It had just been sort of, once I got married, things started changing in my heart, in my life. And
so then I guess that takes us to the part of the story then when you met your husband,
right.
Got married. And did you hide this sin from him for a while, or is it something he knew about? Is it something you had talked about before you got married? Or
yeah, so I don't think I really talked to him about it. When we didn't really know each other that well when we got married. This is not what I would recommend. Yeah.
Right.
So Jody and I met in Russia on a tour. He was playing the violin and I was dancing, and it's actually with a Christian organization. So we, had this sort of romantic, mountaintop experience in Europe. We're doing these performances surrounded by other Christians who, it was a pretty safe environment. So we got to know each other those 2 weeks and then kind of went our separate ways and ended up staying in touch. And he came to Indiana and started going to Clarenote, which was back then Church of the Good Shepherd. And I went to Tennessee to dance with a company that was starting up and kind of follow my dream.
Had you graduated? You'd graduated.
I graduated. This happened the summer after I graduated that I met him. And so he, neither of us at that point were really spiritually strong. He, I went to church, but didn't want to be committed or under authority. And he didn't either. And so I was over here and I was very open about my faith, but was also pretty feminist. So when I thought about being in a relationship, it was, I was very egalitarian and thought that was normal. And thankfully, praise the Lord, God led Jody here and he started learning about submission, and very tenderly, very lovingly, I was falling in love with him. So I was willing to listen to him, and I wasn't willing to listen to other people that would have said the same things to me. Yeah. And so that was a kindness of God, he taught me through this man that I was in love with and was willing to listen to him. And it made sense. It was like for the first time I was like, well, actually I've never questioned this or that thing that I believe.
Right.
And now that you mention it, the Bible does say that. And so by the time he asked me to marry him, which we met in July, and he asked me to marry him in November. And
you met in July?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's 5 months, people.
5 months. That's 5 months. So, but I had committed to teach. I was teaching dance, and I had committed to teach through the end of the school year, which was May. And so I, couldn't leave. So we scheduled our wedding for August. So about a year after we had met. So all of that time then that we were engaged, I was learning. I was coming up here to visit Jody and to meet people. And so I would stay with people from the church. So anyway, the Lord had been working to really just soften my heart to his word and to show me how prideful I had been, and that I thought I could be an independent, Lone Ranger Christian, and that was not how God designed his people to be. And that that it was important, that it was necessary for my faith. So I moved here in May, and our wedding was scheduled for August. And there were all kinds of people telling me, if this doesn't work out, you just walk away, because everybody knew, we didn't know each other that well. But when we came here, or when I came here, there was so many people that were involved in getting to know me and counseling, and that it felt like a safe thing to do. Mm-hmm. And really, apart from the grace of God, it would not have been a good idea because we were both kind of a mess. But God had really worked through this church to bring us both to a point where we were willing to learn and to submit and to grow. And so at that point is when my struggle with sin started to change. So you had asked if Jody knew, and I don't think he really did.
Okay.
I don't think I had been brave enough to this guy that I don't, I'm meeting, and we love each other, and
nobody wants to throw out.
So let me just tell you this really awful thing about myself,
Well, did it ease up? Did some of the pressure ease up, or did it become at all easier now that you weren't in college? And
so what happened when I moved here is that I looked everywhere for a place to dance, and I couldn't find one except for this little studio that was sort of just like a do it for fun kind of a studio. Mm-hmm. There is a dance program at the college, but I don't have a master's degree.
Right.
And I needed a real job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got a desk job, and I couldn't dance. Basically, it wasn't an option. Other than I taught a couple of little classes in the evening to kids. Mm-hmm. And so what happened simultaneously is I promised and committed myself to submission, both to the church and to my husband. Along with that decision, I gave up the thing that I valued most, which was dancing. And it was one of the most painful things I had ever done, because dancing was my whole life.
So much of your life.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I wanted to dance all the time. And so
and you did.
And I
did
in college. Yeah. The real world is a little different. And so it was a really joyful time because I was married, and, we had a happy marriage, but it was hard also because I had given up my idol. But I do still struggle with turning to food for comfort. It's still definitely the thing that I first turn to. And it's, typically not healthy foods that you turn to. It's chocolate, it's cookies, it's, dessert, basically. And so but being married and having children is very helpful. It's a helpful discipline. Mm-hmm. So when my kids were little, I could kind of eat when they were napping. Like if I was going to have like a treat that I didn't want them to really see. Yeah. Now that my kids are older, they see everything. They know.
They know it's in the cupboard.
And I am I have a daughter that's like me, who's kind of impulsive, who doesn't have a lot of self-control with food. And I am very aware of my example. And that has been a discipline that I know the Lord has put in my life, because when we make cookies, and I'm like, I could eat all this cookie dough right here. She's right beside me, and she's like, me too.
I could eat all of it.
And I'm like, and I just realize I have to discipline myself so that I don't lead my daughter into sin. And that has been probably one of the greatest gifts that God's given me in terms of being able to control my appetite and look to food for comfort, is that I have the responsibility and the weight of my children, and that if I lead them into sin, I know what a horrible thing that is, and how God warns so sternly against leading little ones into sin. And so that is a gift that I don't appreciate in the moment always, because I want, that cookie dough. But I am very thankful.
Monumental is hosted by Katie Walker and Amy Molina. It's produced and edited by Katie Walker, and it is executive produced by Nathan Alberson and Jake Menzel. If you like the show, please don't forget to rate and review in the app of your choice. And if you're interested in more great content, including articles and other podcasts, please visit warhornmedia.com.